Hello, this is Megan Longoria, and welcome to week 40 of Workout Wednesday for Power BI. This month of October, we have a theme of mapping and geospatial data. So this week, we're going to start out with what is a relatively simple map, but some cool Power Query stuff to help us visualize the data in a map. So we're going to use the basic map visual in Power BI, but we're going to geocode our data using a Power Query function. So we have in the data city, state, and country, and it happens to be an all US data set, so it is just state. And we're going to send that to Bing Maps and get back the longitude and latitude. And our end report looks like this. So this is the Superstore data set, and we're going to look at just 2020 sales and visualize the data by month in a line chart and then by location, the actual longitude and latitude, but the location is really the city on this map as a bubble map with some cards just to show totals. So first thing, we're going to load our data. And we're going to get data. This data is sitting in data.world, and there is a connector for that. So you could go to data.world and download that, but you could also use this connector. And I'm going to put in the owner and the dataset ID. And we just need orders. And we can see we've got city, state, postal code, region, as well as what product it is. Here's our sales column. And we could get rid of a bunch of these fields to make it tidier if we weren't making any other reports off of this data set. But I'm going to go ahead and move on, just make this orders. These are all decimal. That's a whole number, decimal. That looks good. Our postal code should actually be text. Our dates do show up as dates. So data types look good. Next, I'm going to add a blank query to make my date dimension. I just have a quick script that I like to use for a simple date dimension. And we only need it for 1 year. So my start date is just 1/1/2020. The end is 12/31/2020. You can see I've got year, month, month name, quarter, week, day, and that's about it. I add a month sort at the bottom so that it sorts correctly for month, year. Call this dates. Make sure our data types are all okay. And that gives us our date dimension. So you can find lots of these online, and some are more detailed than others. I linked to one that's pretty simple in the workout. So if you don't have your own date dimension, you can feel free to reference this one from Radicad. There we go. So he shows you how to set your start and end date, create the list of dates, and then you can add the extra calendar columns you need. And here's the end script. The next thing is we're going to use Bing Maps API to geocode our cities so that we can get longitude and latitude. So the first thing we have to do is go to Bing Maps and sign in because we need to get a key. Okay, once you are in, you just go to My Keys under My Account. And you may need to create a new key. If not, you'll just copy your key and paste it in a notepad or somewhere, wherever you need it, so that you can copy it into your query editor later. You can borrow the script that he uses, that Dustin uses in this blog post. It works just fine. So it's here. I used that and typed that up myself. So I have it ready to paste in. But what you'll notice is a couple things. When you do from web, you'll put in a location and you'll need to make sure you have your key in there. So if we look at this dev.virtualearth.net URL, the last part, you replace the Bing Maps key with your key. Or you just look and create a blank query and copy off his down there to the extent possible. I'm going to paste mine in. So we're feeding it a city. We're sending it XML. The city is concatenated into this URL. My key is at the end. This is just digging down to get the longitude and latitude portions of what gets returned. My function for geocoding, and I'm going to go back to orders. And this is a very small data set, so I can just go ahead and kind of do the relative date filter, but this has performance implications on a larger one. So you can either do year equals last year or do between, and then do 1/1/2020, and then 12/31/2020. So now the only thing we'll have is 2020 dates for order date. Then I need to add a custom column, and I'm going to call it location. And I'll do city, state, country. So we can see that here. Then we're going to add another column by invoking the custom function. And We won't really care what it's named because we're going to actually pull some locations out of it, and we are in fact going to use location, or we're going to pull the longitude and latitude coordinates out of it rather. So it adds this column that we then have to expand. Oh yeah, we want both longitude, latitude. I don't need the original column name as a prefix. And there we go. And they are decimals. And they're now added to our orders table. And this may take a couple minutes. That Bing Maps API is a little slow coming from Power BI, and we're doing it row by row. So that's fine. Since we're just doing this as a one-time thing, it's not a big deal. There is an API limit, so if you refresh this several times, you'll probably hit it, or if you don't filter out the other dates, that might be enough data to exceed your limit. Just be aware, but I've tested this for the 2020 data, and it does in fact return. Okay, now that we have our tables populated, I'm going to create a measure. For the number of orders. A measure for sales. And a measure for profit. And I'll go ahead and make a title text box and say 2020 Superstore Sales Analysis. Make that a bit bigger. There we go. I'll add my line chart. And I'm going to do month name since we only have 1 year. And then my sales measure. And call this sales by month. And we need to make sure in our date dimension that month name is sorted by month and month year is sorted by month sort. And then make sure our two tables have a relationship. So that's from order date to date, and it's already one to many, so that's good. Make sure we are sorting by month name and ascending. And now we have our line chart. Make this a little smaller there. And we'll come back and format that. I need a slicer with categories. We're going to call that category selection. And then we need our map. So it's just the map visual. We need to put in sales for the size, and then grab our latitude and longitude. And that gives us our map. Go ahead and make this pretty big. And I'm using a dark background, so I need to go format some things. But first I will change my title and just say sales by city, because it is still by city. We're just mapping it using longitude and latitude. So I can go to map styles and choose dark. So now it blends in better. So now I need to format some things here. I'm going to make my slicer header a little smaller there. Make my items just a bit, 10 points is fine. My font color is going to be kind of an off-white so that it shows up better. I need to make my title smaller over here. Knock that down to 12. Same thing here. Format this a bit. I'm going to turn my x-axis colors like that. Go to my y-axis, turn the title off, turn the y-axis off. I'm going to turn on data labels and again adjust the color. And actually, it can be a tad darker. And I'm adjusting these so that I have good color contrast. So if I open up my handy dandy color contrast tool, I can measure this blue on this black is 12.5 to 1, which is great color contrast. I can measure, let's do the title, is 17.5 to 1. So generally we want everything to be, if it's non-text, 3 to 1. If it's text, 4.5 to 1. So that's why we're using high contrast colors here to make sure it's readable by lots of people. And then I just need to add some cards. And for speed, I just copied and pasted these cards in. But I'm going to make my data labels be a little smaller, and I'm going to format so that it's a whole number with a thousands separator. Same thing for total profit. Oops. There we go. And total orders. So it does show whole number, it just needs a comma. We're going to do one more thing first. Oh, our background is on, but it's 100% transparent. So we're going to use this color and make it like 85% transparent. Same thing over here, background, same color, and do like 85. Right now, it's not going to matter, but you'll see in a second. The map doesn't need it. What I did for these is this total sales is actually the same color as what we've been using for total sales elsewhere, but it's a transparent background. And then it has a border that is, this is the color we're using, that is the darkest version in the palette so that it still shows up. And then I picked, colors that contrast well with a dark background. So then I need to add my page background. I chose an image, and that's part of why I was making sure I had backgrounds on these, so that if there's any conflict where there's a bright part in the background, it gets covered by the background of the chart. So we could knock this down to like 65 to be safe. Same thing here. And there we go. So then I do an accessibility check and I make sure that I have alt text, that my colors are good, that there's no unnecessary jargon, that my tab order is set, which is in selection. Go over here and we want our text box first, our slicer second, then our line chart, this card, and then our sales by city. So that when we tab, oops, it goes in a reasonable order. And I'm going to skip making you watch me add the alt text, but if you go look at the final version, that's in there as well. So here's the final. And the last thing to do is we're going to use the rectangle selector. And notice it gives me kind of a plus now. And select every dot in Utah and Colorado. And notice it changed everything so we can see our total sales is 12,670. And then we can unselect that. And that is week 40. Thank you for watching.